Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
And hello again, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Well, Alabama responded after that shocking loss at Vanderbilt in Nashville last week by coming back on Saturday at home against South Carolina. And this one had the fans on their edge of their seats as well, Rodney, as it came down to the final seconds against the Gamecocks. Alabama survived late. Bama had a 14-0 lead with under 2 minutes to go in the first half, but the Gamecocks scored 12 points. We'll get into how they did that in the final minute 37. Then they took the opening kickoff of the third quarter, 85 yards for a touchdown. Suddenly they had a 19-14 lead. Alabama was down going into the fourth quarter in this one, but they scored a couple of touchdowns, took the lead, and then held on after they were up 20-19. On their own 36-yard line, or on the South Carolina 36-yard line. South Carolina had no timeouts. Alabama did score a touchdown. It was a great play call to Jeremy Bernard. But if he'd gone down, the game would have been over. But because they scored, they kicked it back to South Carolina, and that led to a hectic final minute or so as they were down by 8. They scored a touchdown on a great pass from Lenora Sellers to Nick Harbor. 43 seconds left, made it 27-25. They went for 2 and didn't make it, but then they got the onside kick. You're watching all the highlights here, Rodney. I want you to pick it up. This game had a little bit of everything, but in the end, Alabama got the result that they needed to get, which was the W.
They did. And, you know, when you watch this Alabama team, Gary, look, they had plenty of opportunities, kind of like we said in the Georgia game in the second half. Or in the first half when they had a chance to deliver a knockout blow. I think there was opportunities. There's the Bernard play you're talking about. But, you know, Gary, they had plenty of opportunities here. As you said, they were up 14-0, but, you know, they squandered some drives. They had some penalties that called back some plays on drives, stalled some drives. It's really the same thing. I mean, I think when you look at it, Alabama's been its own worst enemy, a lot of avoidable mistakes. Look, I know they've got issues on defense, but I think if Alabama could just avoid some of the mistakes that they're making that are very easily avoidable, then they're going to be tough to beat.
Let's talk about the end of the first half and then the end of the game. As I said, it's 14-0, under 2 minutes to go, and I think I got a little ahead of myself. South Carolina was on the Alabama 36. South Carolina faced a 4th and 9. They went for it, and the disappointing thing is, I think the way it's gone lately, we expect them to make it, but not only did they make the first down, they got a touchdown. Busted coverage by Alabama.
Yeah. Wide open. I mean, and you had Zay Mincy, a true freshman, down there. Now, I'm not saying it was Zay's fault. I'm not really sure exactly who was responsible for that receiver. I know he was let go down the right sideline. There, busted coverage one way. However you want to look at it, it was a busted coverage.
I think he's supposed to have safety help.
Yeah, and so in that situation, obviously, you know, a 14-zip game turns into 14-7 with 137. You're expecting, hey, we're going to get out of half before any more damage, right?
No, then, they were in cover 2. Safety doesn't get over. I don't know what happened there. 14-7. Then the kickoff, they don't bring it out, but Caleb Odom gets a personal foul on a kick that wasn't brought out. And you're starting the inside your 5. Milroe gets called for a safety when they try to throw it out of the end zone. It's 14-9. You punt it to them. You get a turnover. You force a fumble, get the ball back. You think, well, maybe Alabama will score. Yeah. Instead, they wind up throwing an interception on what I thought was the last play of the half. They put a second back on the clock. South Carolina kicked a field goal, and it's 14-12.
You know, it's 44 seconds left. Alabama's running the clock. You think, okay, they're just going to get out of this at halftime. And you know, really, Kalen DeBoer, you see, he wants to be aggressive. He said that. He always wants to be aggressive. They call timeout with 10 or 11 seconds left. They throw a ball. I mean, Milroe just made honestly, it wasn't his best throw of the game. I think he threw it a little bit late, regardless of what happened. They get the pick. Fortunately, he doesn't return it for a touchdown. They settle for the field goal right there. But you give up 12 points, the final minute 37. Those are the kind of things, Gary, that are hurting this team.
And now to the end of the game. You're up 20-19. You got a 3rd and 10 at the 34-yard line of South Carolina. Timeout, great play call. Bernard gets wide open. And listen, I don't want to be too hard on him. I mean, it's instinct to get it in the end zone. He catches the ball. He said after the game nobody told him not to score, so he scored. And the game should have been over. I mean, South Carolina had no timeouts. The problem is, and we're seeing it from a couple different angles, is with no timeouts, down 27-19, they go right down the field and score a touchdown.
Well, there's 154 left, I think, when he scored, if I'm not mistaken. That's a lot of time nowadays, even without timeouts. And there you see he got the foot down. That was a tremendous catch right there. But, you know, it doesn't look good. Fortunately, Sellers doesn't throw a good pass on that two-point conversion. He sails it out of the back of the end zone because the guy's open. Would have been a tie game. But, Gary, honestly, I don't know about you. Maybe you've seen it. I haven't. But this South Carolina kicker, this onside kick.
It was incredible drop kick. You know, he drop kicked. It was a disaster for Alabama. First, I think it was 81, the tight end. Dupree that got on. Here it is. It's face spinning. He can't get it. Then Oots gets on it. He can't get it. And they get the onside kick. And I'll give Alabama's defense credit here. They turned up the heat on this series and put pressure on Norris, a lot of it.
You know, Gary, that may be the most promising aspect of this game as you look at it down the stretch. Alabama was challenged here. They were on their heels. And like you said, they turned up the heat. I think when you look at this Alabama defense, one of the things I'd like to see more, I think you would like to see more of, is turn up the heat on the quarterback. You cannot allow him to stand back there with time. And you made a great point, Gary. I think you'd almost rather give up an 85-yard touchdown pass than a 16-play drive that they just gut you.
In today's game, I think you would. I think you'd rather give up the big play, take a chance, get after the quarterback. If they hit you, you get back out there with your offense. They had 4 sacks in the game. Consider they only had 10 the entire season coming in. And L.T. Overton led the nation with 9 pressures, so they got after the quarterback better. And you and I in the press box did notice some things differently on defense with a lot of different coaches being involved in the huddles. It seemed to be more coaching, defensive coordinating. Kane Womack, still the coordinator, but it seemed that was more of a group effort in that game. It's what it looked like to me.
It really did, and I think you had pointed out that Womack seemed to be a distance from the huddle. Chuck Morrell, the co-defense coordinator at Washington last year, now special assistant to DeBoer, seemed to be kind of leading that huddle. And again, I don't know what exactly the communication is there, but they're working things defensively to try to get on the same page.
Yeah, I had a couple media people in the press conference room afterwards asked me, "You've been covering this team a long time. After last week and this week, is it pretty bad?" I said, "Well, not nearly as bad as it would have been if they lost the game." Let me tell you that right now. Yeah. They won the game, which is a good thing. And now it's time for Coach Talk. Earlier this week, Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer was asked about some of the late game mistakes and also some issues with quarterback Jalen Milroe turning the ball over in recent performances. Here's what DeBoer had to say. This is his response about game management by a starting quarterback.
I'm really intentional with him because I know how hard he is on himself, and this is really going back to I wasn't with him last year, but I know in spring ball and just how he was, and knowing that we are fighting for each other, fighting with each other. That's just not me and him. That's our football team. When we're in those moments, it's all about moving forward. No regrets when we walk off this football field, knowing we've given everything we've got, and that's just what I try to do when it comes to those times. Not just with him, with our whole team.
I like what Coach said there. Milroe's hard on himself. And I noticed in the press conference after the game, he was really down by his standards. Usually he's laughing. He was serious. Today in the media session, he was serious. Listen, he's had 4 turnovers the last 2 games. He's turned it over in the fourth quarter. He's still making plays. We get that. But he needs to take better care of the football. I mean, he is the straw that stirs the drink, and he needs to play better. I'm not saying he's playing horrible, but he needs to play better if Alabama's going to get where it wants to go.
I agree with you there over the last 2 weeks, although I thought against Vanderbilt he made some fantastic throws, maybe some of his better throws. But again, it's the consistency. I do like the way DeBoer continues to want to build the confidence. But I'll say this, Gary, Alabama, I think, needs to start utilizing these running backs. Jam Miller, Justice Haynes. Get this running game going with those 2 guys. You look at the number of carries. Milroe has 77 carries. Jam Miller has 51. Haynes only has 39. Yeah. You want to get these running backs involved more.
And I thought in that game against South Carolina, he didn't say anything about it. Nobody said anything about it. He took some shots in that game. And he looked to me in that fourth quarter, he wasn't moving the way or throwing the ball the way he normally does. But he toughed it out. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama scores a commitment flip from an SEC rival. Find out the details, and we'll get a breakdown from Rodney on this new commit. And does rivalry week hold the key to healing some of the struggles for either Alabama or Tennessee? Neither one of these teams are playing great coming into the 3rd Saturday in October. We're going to break it all down for you next on Tider Insider Television.
they're the big ones that are on the schedule. I mean, as a coach, they're all big, right, in different ways, and you take one at a time. But we certainly understand the significance of the rivalry, and guys are going to be very motivated to go out and do their best and prepare well and be great on Saturday.
And we're back on TITV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa's Visit Tuscaloosa. Go to visittuscaloosa.com. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. It's the third Saturday in October, and that means it's Tennessee week for the most part. Sometimes it's not been on the third Saturday in October, but it is this year. And Rodney, this is a huge game for both these teams because both these teams had unexpected losses. Alabama at Vanderbilt, as we mentioned, Tennessee at Arkansas. They both came back with close wins last week. But, I don't want to make too much out of this because you got to come back and play the next week, regardless of winning or losing this game. But the loser of this game is going to have 2 losses in the league, and it's going to be running uphill. There's no way around that. Yeah,
I mean, I'll look at these two teams over the last couple of weeks. They're kind of mirror images of each other. They haven't played well. You talked about that. After both started really fast, but they haven't played as well in recent weeks. I tell you, Gary, the quarterback, well, first of all, there you see Tennessee getting the interception. They've been really good on defense. They only give up 79 yards a game rushing, 250 overall. Offensively, they were explosive early in the year, but they've really struggled. Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah,
however. All right, so his quarterback rating, Gary, this last week against Florida was a really miserable 17, 38 the week before. He's really struggling. He's a very talented kid. This guy's got great wheels. I mean, he can really run. He can hurt you with his feet. Tremendous arm, but he's struggled over the last week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, he has, and particularly with pressure. And, he's talented enough. He's 6'6". He's got a big arm, make all the throws. If you let him get in a rhythm, he can kill you.
I
think it's very important that Alabama upset his timing the way that Arkansas did, the way that Florida did. And to do that, you're probably going to risk giving up some big plays, but I think you have to do it.
Oh, no, I think you do. I think you have to come after him. I think you have to rattle him a little bit. And again, I think when you do, you have to be careful because when he escapes the pocket, he's really dangerous as a runner.
Nico Iamaleava.
There you go.
There you go. All right. We'll mention this. James Pierce, their edge rusher, is incredible. They are without their leading tackler in this game, though. He went out with a knee injury against Florida.
Yeah, I mean, that hurts. I mean, when you look at how good they've been defensively, like I said, against the run, they only give up 79 yards a game. It's pretty amazing. But, so that certainly hurts him. But their front's been really good. They're going to pressure Alabama. You talk about Alabama pressuring them, pressuring Nico. I mean, I think Jalen Milroe, they're going to come after him.
Yeah, they are. That's for sure. All right, let's get to recruiting. And we'll have our predictions for the Tennessee game coming up a little bit later on. Kalen DeBoer and the Crimson Tide picking up a win on the recruiting trail on Monday. They get junior college defensive lineman Cavante Henry to flip his commitment from Mississippi State. Now, this is a guy that's got some history with Courtney Morgan, the Alabama GM. He committed to Michigan when Courtney was at Michigan. Then Courtney left to go to Washington. He signed with Oklahoma. He spent a year there, transferred to junior college, committed to Mississippi State, and now to Alabama. He's your prototypical edge rusher. 6'5". I know he's listed at 220, but they say he's up to about 240, Rodney. Can get after the quarterback, long and athletic.
Yes, he is. And Gary, the one thing about it is when he gets on the edge, he gets on the corner, his closing speed is phenomenal. I mean, you watch him here. Watch this. Just runs him down from the backside. That's why he's probably considered the #1 junior college pass rusher in the country.
Yeah, so far in his junior college career, 15 games. He's got 13 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks. So a big pickup for Alabama here, Rod. And again, affecting the quarterback on defense is probably the most important thing that you can do. So adding a pass rusher, always good.
Always. And I think that's one thing that we've talked about this team. Although you see maybe some development coming along with some of the guys they have now, Q Robinson among them, but you always need pass rushers.
All right, still to come on TITV, Alabama basketball took a trip over to the Grand Bohemian today in Mountain Brook as they get ready to tip off their season. SEC Men's Basketball Media Day is on the way. And up next as well, your phone calls, emails, and tweets. I kind of skipped over the number in the last segment, but there it is. I know not as many people are able to watch us right now because of the situation with us and our transmitter, but if you're watching and want to call in, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can email us at the address on your screen or also tweet at us, as we had a couple of tweets today at TITV. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide and your phone calls next on Tider Insider TV. The SEC basketball men's media tip-off today. The women tomorrow over at the Grand Bohemian Hotel in Mountain Brook. And Alabama head coach Nate Oates, point guard and preseason All-SEC Player of the Year Mark Sears, and also graduate senior Latrell Reitzel Jr. were the representatives for the Crimson Tide today. Alabama was ranked number 2 in the preseason AP poll that came out on Monday. Alabama is expected to be a team to compete for the national championship. And today, CBS Sports named Mark Sears its preseason National Player of the Year.
Wow.
How noteworthy is that? Well, he's only 6 feet tall, right? It's very rare that a guard is your preseason National Player of the Year. It's usually a big man. So, Rod, just a quick word on basketball. It's people are pumped up and excited, and they should be. Although, as I said today on my radio show, it's hard to get to the Final Four. It took Alabama a long, long time to do it. Now you're trying to go to back-to-back Final Fours. You can have a great team, catch a bad draw in the tournament. It's, you want to be as good as you can in the regular season, get as high a seed as you can. It takes a little bit of luck. But this team, at least when you just look at the roster, they've got all the parts.
It's loaded. But Gary, you talked about the good draw. I mean, let's face it, Alabama last year was not playing well at the end of the year, got a good draw, got hot. Went to the Final Four.
Yeah, all the teams that I thought were good enough to get to the Final Four here, I didn't think last year was one of them. And that's the one that's the way it goes sometimes, you know. But this team on paper is good enough. All right, phone calls are being taken. If you can give us a ring at 205-348-9882. I understand our audience is limited tonight, but phone lines are open. In the meantime, we're going to get to our email question of the day, and it's brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, KDM Service Corporation serves your family like our family. Let's get to that email question. When will officials stop calling a tap on the QB helmet a personal foul? That's from Michael in Tuscaloosa. Michael, I got to tell you, I'm with you. I don't know. Listen, officiating's hard, and I can be a little harsh on these guys sometimes. I think they've made it even harder. But I don't know even what targeting is anymore. I've seen guys the last couple of weeks in the Cal and Miami game, and then in the LSU Ole Miss game where you had definite helmet to helmet. It wasn't even a penalty. And then this is a personal foul, and we also saw it in the Vanderbilt game, Rodney. It's a legit question.
And it's happened like you said, it's happened a couple of times. It's really frustrating. It's kept drives alive. It's put teams in scoring position. Here's the problem I have with it. Again, that's not really flagrant, the way I look at it. If that's the rule, then what happened 2 years ago at Knoxville when they repeatedly took flagrant shots at Bryce Young, and there was no penalties called?
I know he took one in the kisser that I'm shocked he got up from it, Rodney.
It's amazing.
It wasn't even a penalty. All right, thank you for that email question of the day. We got a Twitter question too. It's going to come in to us from our friend Go Line Stan. How can Alabama improve its offensive run game without relying on Milroe? Rodney, you spoke to this earlier. Now listen, Milroe's a great runner. They're going to continue to use him, but they got some good backs too. I'm with you. If you can get those backs rolling, you can start dictating to the defense.
Here's the thing I think. As good as Milroe is, if you get Justice Haynes and Jam Miller rolling like that, Gary, all of a sudden the defense is really, they got to account for those guys in a greater way. And then Milroe, he can pop the outside. Right. He can hit the corner. A lot of these teams are adjusting to Milroe on the edge. He still made some good plays. But if you can get this running game going with those two, I think it makes Milroe even better.
Well, you're going to need it on Saturday, that's for sure. Going to really have to have the offense clicking in every area to beat Tennessee. They got a good defense. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, we'll have Bama in the NFL, see which former Crimson Tide star had his best NFL game yet, and more. And we'll also have the emails coming back for you. And again, phone lines are open. I understand our audience for the live show right now is limited because we're not on the cable systems for most of them, or the satellite systems, but you're watching us online, or you're watching us locally on a HD antenna, or if you're watching us on our app, give us a call, 205-348-9882. We would love to hear from you. We'll be right back with more TITV right after this timeout. I love Bama in the NFL. Can't get to everybody, but you can get to Derrick Henry. Man, this guy's unbelievable. 132 yards, 24 carries, 2 touchdowns in the Ravens' win over the Commanders. He's already got over 700 yards and 9 touchdowns this season. The Terminator, Will Anderson, had his best game as a pro. He had 3 sacks, a pass deflection that turned into an interception, 8 total tackles, as the Texans are really good. They rattled the Patriots 41-21. Brian Branch, 2 interceptions and a forced fumble in a blowout over the Cowboys. Branch is just all over the field. And is on his way to the Pro Bowl. Also today, I'll make mention of this. Amari Cooper, this is a good break for Amari. He gets traded by the Browns to the Bills, so he goes from a team going nowhere to a team that's got a chance maybe to get to the Super Bowl. All right, welcome back into TITV. We are going to take a phone call. Now, we do have a phone call. Turner in Tuscaloosa is with us. Hey, Turner, how are you?
Doing well. How are y'all guys?
Doing well, man.
All right, so I know Alabama has technical issues they need to work on, like tackling, but what adjustments can the defense make to prepare for these top 50 offenses that they'll be facing in the coming week?
From a coaching standpoint, Rodney, schematically, what can the coaches do to, because they're going to be facing some really good offenses?
Well, I think we've talked about a little bit of it, Gary. I think when you look at some of the teams they're going to face, there's going to be some really good quarterbacks. We talked about Nico. You've got the kid at LSU who's really good, Nussmeier. You've got some other good quarterbacks coming up. I think when you defend those guys, you have to pressure them. Mm-hmm. You have to come after them. We saw a difference in the latter part of the Alabama game, how Norris responded to that pressure. Alabama really hadn't lit him up. I think the pressure that Alabama can maybe get on these quarterbacks certainly would help the defense in terms of not only the pass, but I think, too, when you look at the run game, I think Alabama has to get better against stopping the run. Talk to some people about that, Gary. And, again, I think it all starts up front. Alabama's got to play better up front.
All right, pressure, pressure, pressure. We'll be back with our predictions after this. Rodney, Alabama's won 16 of the last 17. How do you see it on Saturday?
How about 17 of the last 18? Let's hope. Anyway, I think avoidable mistakes. Alabama does that. They take care of business 31-27.
I like it. You got right to the point. Listen, Keenan Peely, I mentioned the leading tackler out for Tennessee. That's big for them. But I think it's going to be the Alabama defense that rises up in this game. I got Alabama winning it and holding Tennessee down. How about that? 24-20. And Bama makes it 17 out of 18. At least that's our predictions. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Tider Insider TV. A reminder, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 or anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you with the Final Four banner reveal from last Friday night inside Coleman Coliseum. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Good night, everybody.